These days, it's hard to shock a television audience. Watching TV is an American pastime. Whole generations have been raised by that glowing box. But live television, usually reserved for news, sporting events, and a single Saturday night airing sketch comedy show, retains its capacity to capture true-life drama as it unfolds in real time. And those images become unforgettable moments in modern history. So, today, we're taking a deep dive into the most shocking things that have ever been broadcast live on TV. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other televised history you would like to hear about. Okay, time for some breaking history. In 1986, NASA was high on its biggest PR moment since the moon landing. The organization was going to send a civilian schoolteacher named Christa McAuliffe into space. She would be accompanying a team of 6 trained astronauts and broadcasting a pair of lessons back down to Earth while in orbit. People around the world were eager to see this historic achievement live before their eyes. A normal person being able to go into space seemed like a massive step forward for humanity. Tragically, millions watched on television as the Challenger rocket suffered a catastrophic failure and exploded seconds after liftoff, obliterating the shuttle and its entire crew, including McAuliffe. The disaster crushed public enthusiasm for the space program, and it remains one of the most infamous live broadcasts in history. In 2015, reporter Allison Parker and her cameraman Adam Ward, working near Roanoke, Virginia, were interviewing Vicki Gardner, an executive director of the local Chamber of Commerce, when an unidentified man suddenly approached and gunned them both down. The entire shocking crime was broadcast live. The perpetrator was Vester Lee Flanagan II, who used to work as a reporter for Roanoke's CBS affiliate before being fired in 2013 for inappropriate conduct. Flanagan took the lives of Parker and Ward as revenge for what he felt was mistreatment by the broadcast company. Vicki Gardner, the interview subject, was hit in the crossfire, but she survived her injuries. A manhunt ensued, with Flanagan leading authorities on a 2-mile pursuit before driving his truck off the road and fatally shooting himself. As the televised crime was committed, a document written by Flanagan surfaced on ABC News. In it, he claimed to be inspired by similar acts of violence and insisted he was the victim of discrimination by his former employers, calling himself a human powder keg, just waiting to go boom. Christine Chubbuck, a newscaster in Sarasota, Florida, ended her broadcast on July 15, 1974 by saying, "In keeping with the WXLT practice of presenting the most immediate and complete reports of local blood and guts news, TV40 presents what is believed to be a television first, in living color and exclusive coverage of an attempted." Then she drew a pistol and used it on herself, live on air. According to sources close to the family, Chubbuck endured a lengthy battle with depression and ideation of self-harm, and had made a previous attempt on her own life 4 years earlier in 1970. Chubbuck's mother chose not to notify WXLT's management of her daughter's struggles because she feared Christine would be fired. A few days before the fatal broadcast, Chubbuck hosted a party with her co-workers. Sportscaster Craig Sager said, "She was having a great time. That was her going-away party, and it was her chance to say goodbye to everyone. But of course, we didn't realize it at the time." In 2016, separate filmmakers released 2 movies about the incident, Christine and Kate Plays Christine, both of which chronicle Chubbuck's deteriorating condition in the time leading up to the tragedy. Robert Bud Dwyer was the treasurer of Pennsylvania from 1981 through 1987, until he became embroiled in a series of scandals and was ultimately convicted of corruption. On January 22, 1987, the day before his sentencing and facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines and potentially 55 years in prison, Dwyer called a press conference. He gave a rambling 30-minute speech proclaiming his innocence and insisting he was the victim of a widespread conspiracy within the Justice Department to destroy his career. Near the end of his remarks, he suddenly said something uncharacteristically ominous. "Please leave immediately if you have a weak stomach or mind, since I don't want to cause physical or mental distress. Goodbye to you all on the count of 3. Please make sure that the sacrifice of my life is not in vain." Then Dwyer withdrew a pistol from a manila envelope and shot himself. The act was broadcast live to numerous Pennsylvania TV stations, with Press Secretary James Horshock pleading for the camera operators to leave the room immediately and show a little decorum. Despite his efforts, the graphic and upsetting event was recorded by multiple sources. Videotaped copies were widely circulated, and Dwyer's dramatic final moments briefly became part of the zeitgeist. Filter's 1995 hit, "Hey Man, Nice Shot," is a direct reference to the event, and Kurt Cobain was known to watch his copy of the tape obsessively. In 1998, Daniel V. Jones, an HIV-positive maintenance worker from Los Angeles, parked his truck in the middle of an interstate and unfurled a banner that said, "HMOs are in it for the money. Live free, love safe, or die." The SWAT team arrived with news helicopters in tow and attempted to negotiate with Jones, unsure of what the man would do next, or if this standoff was simply an act of protest. But then, as the police and countless others on live TV watched in shock, Jones lit himself ablaze before ultimately ending his life with a firearm. This final dramatic act of protest was aired live on countless TV stations, even interrupting many afternoon cartoon blocks. Before his final act, Jones threw a videotape onto the freeway. The authorities viewed it, finding footage of Jones explaining his actions and protesting the immense pain and social stigma he faced as a result of his HIV diagnosis. Jones reportedly claimed that the disease was affecting his neurological system and that he had no desire to wait around to lose his mind. Two helicopters collided in the Phoenix, Arizona sky in 2007. Two helicopters from different news stations, pilot Craig Smith and photographer Rick Krolak were in a Channel 15 chopper, while pilot Scott Bowerbank and photographer Jim Cox were flying with Channel 3, were urgently following a police pursuit as it unfolded. In their efforts to keep up with the action, the two pilots somehow wound up in each other's path, resulting in a mid-air collision that claimed the lives of all four men. After the deadly accident, the families of Smith and Bowerbank filed wrongful death lawsuits against all parties involved, but these suits were all dismissed. The National Transportation Safety Board ultimately ruled that the pilots themselves were at fault for failing to see each other before the collision. In 1960, Japanese right-wing nationalist Utoya Yamaguchi stormed a live televised political debate featuring Socialist Party chairman Inijiru Asanuma and attacked him with a traditional wakizashi, or short sword, before being subdued. Asanuma succumbed to his wounds minutes later. Yamaguchi was carrying a notebook explaining his motivations. It read in part, "Although I bear no grudge against you as an individual for the stances you have taken in your role as leader of the Socialist Party, I cannot grant you forgiveness. I shall hereby become the instrument that brings down heaven's judgment upon you." Lee Harvey Oswald was easily the most hated man in America after taking the life of President John F. Kennedy in 1963 during a fateful motorcade parade in Dallas. However, when the infamous Zapruder film captured footage of the historic tragedy, it was not actually broadcast on television. The same couldn't be said for Oswald's fate. While Oswald was being transported between prisons, Jack Ruby, a local nightclub owner with ties to organized crime, leapt from a crowd that had gathered around the notorious assassin and shot Oswald at point-blank range while news cameras were rolling. Several now iconic photographs of the shooting even ran in newspapers the following day. It's a live moment that would launch 1,000 more conspiracy theories, on top of the ones that already surrounded JFK's death. Was Ruby acting alone? Was he operating as an agent of the mob? What were his ties to the Kennedys? Unfortunately, we'll probably never know. In 1997, two men robbed a North Hollywood, California Bank of America with a genuine arsenal of firepower. As the world watched on television, they engaged in a shootout with police that injured 11 police officers and 7 innocent bystanders, and ended with both thieves fatally shot. The incident was quickly dubbed the Battle of North Hollywood. The two suspects, Larry Phillips Jr. and Emil Mataserano, had perpetrated one of the most dramatic robberies ever recorded. During the entire standoff, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 bullets were exchanged between the gunmen and police, as news cameras recorded every second. Before Shawn Nelson was rampaging through the streets of San Diego in a stolen tank, he was an Army vet, a plumber, a crystal meth addict, and the possible host of an undiagnosed mental problem. After stealing a tank from a National Guard armory, Army veteran Shawn Nelson led police on a 23-minute televised chase through the streets of San Diego, demolishing hundreds of thousands of dollars of property as he drove the armored vehicle through entire buildings. Nelson had found work as a plumber after the military, but was struggling with addiction, and it's been theorized that he likely had other mental health issues that were going untreated. Every moment of Nelson's shocking rampage was broadcast on television as news helicopters followed the stolen tank. The chase finally came to an end when a police officer climbed onto the tank and fired into the hatch, fatally striking Nelson. Nelson's motivations remain a mystery, although some observers noted that Nelson just wanted to get the utilities and cause as much damage without hurting people. So what do you think? Which of these moments was the most shocking? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.